Welcome to another episode of With Love Mama, the podcast. Today we are joined by a beautiful birth story guest, Renee, a beautiful mum of two. How are you going?
Yeah, really good. Thanks. How are you?
I'm good. I've had a bit of baby brain already, so we'll see how the rest of this episode goes.
It's so fine. Not a problem.
But I am looking forward to getting into your journey because we'll briefly sort of touch on your births. I know the first one you had a great pregnancy and then it ended in a caesarean. And then second time round, you were wanting to achieve a VBAC, although it didn't quite go in that direction. So
Yeah.
let's just highlight some of like the key points of your births and going into them, how you were feeling and all of the things.
Yeah, of course. So first time, obviously the fear of the unknown was probably the biggest thing for me. So I did spend a lot of time trying to educate myself as to what was happening or what could happen. However, I also just went into it thinking what will be will be. I have no idea what this is going to be like when it comes to the labor itself. Um, so towards the end, obviously, you get pretty nervous and a bit antsy, just waiting. And then I actually had some reduced movements. So I went in to get checked, and Bub was not doing so great. His heart rate was a bit all over the shop. So that's when I was induced, which then, yes, did lead to the C-section.
Mhm.
Um, but all in all, I wouldn't call it like a traumatic experience the first time around. So again, just very much what will be will be.
Mhm.
So yeah, that went really well. And then when I was about maybe 11 months postpartum, we fell pregnant with our second son. Yeah, so this time I really was hoping for the VBAC. I had my same midwife that I did the first time. So I was in MGP, which is a great program for continuity of care. Great pregnancy again, was really excited about birth, but I feel I was a little bit weary because I knew that if I didn't achieve the VBAC, I would be a bit disappointed. I think I knew that that was going to happen if I didn't achieve the VBAC. So I tried to lower my expectation a little, but still, that was very hard to do. I just really wanted to do it because I knew I could.
Yeah.
Then, when it came to the birth itself, my waters broke. So that was pre labor, like no signs of labor happening at all. And then just they broke when I was watching Grey's Anatomy, of all things.
It is so
Uh,
funny that it was
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Just one of those comfort show things, you know. And yeah, my partner just woke up and I said, "Oh, my waters broke." And he's like, "What do we do? Do we go to the hospital?" I said, "No, no." Like I knew that my waters were clear. Could stay home. And the next morning we went to get checked at the hospital just to make sure everything was okay. Still no signs of labor. And then we all checked, monitored, everything was great. So I said, I'm not staying in hospital and I'm not getting induced. I will be going home to try and let labor commence on its own.
Did you
Um,
actually do anything to support like labor commencing, or did you just try and stay comfortable?
Tried to just, like keep the house really nice and dark, like really feel cozy at home. We dropped my toddler at my parents' house so that we didn't have a little tornado running around as well. We hung out, watched movies, ate good food. What else did we do? I tried to pump a little bit, and that would bring on some light contractions or tightenings, but nothing significant. And I obviously don't want to be sitting there pumping all day long to try and bring it on.
Yeah.
So we just thought, yeah, we'll just take it easy. I did have some pretty painful movements that night. So I called my midwife to say it's really uncomfortable. It's not a labor or contraction pain. And they said, "Oh, that's okay." I'm like, "Oh, okay, no worries."
Yeah.
Everything was going well and I slept that night. The next morning, again, just go to the hospital for a review. the doctors came to check. Of course, the doctors really wanted to induce me because it had been over the 24 hours since my waters had broken.
Have they
Um,
checked baby's position in this time yet?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we had. So so both my boys were transverse right up until about 37 weeks, and both ended up turning themselves um, to head down. So yes, each time I was getting checked, baby was in the right position, head down, ready to go. Um, so we're at the hospital about 10 a.m. Getting reviewed and some more monitoring done, and again a position check. So he was head down. They even did a bedside scan to make sure everything was going well, which it was. I did, because the doctors wanted me to say, I actually had to sign documents to say I'm like essentially refusing medical advice
Yeah.
by going home. I didn't want to stay on the ward. I said, no, if labor's going to start, I want it to be at home.
Think
The
that's a
reason,
really great thing to highlight actually for a lot of mums is that you're always going to be given the opportunity to choose their protocols and their way of supporting you throughout birth and deliver, like, sorry, labor and delivery. But there is the option to say no and refuse if it's not aligned with you. But like you said, there may be paperwork or something involved, but there's always that option.
yeah, and you know, the midwives had we had discussed this previously because I knew that this could be a possibility that the doctors would have their own views, especially being a VBAC and only 18 months between the deliveries. They, really wanted to have a bit more control of the situation. So by keeping me at the hospital, they could keep an eye on things. They could keep encouraging an induction and whatnot. But this is where sort of having good discussions with my midwife, but also having that education and research that I had done before to know, well, for me to achieve a VBAC, the best chance is for me to not be in hospital as long as possible.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't want to birth at home, but I knew that I should stay home as long as I could to try and reduce that chance of intervention.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I did. I said, no, give me the paperwork and I will sign them. No worries. Of course, they let you know certain risks and whatnot, but I felt quite in tune with my body as well.
Beautiful.
So yeah, again, no meconium, no issues with the waters, anything like that. So that was really good.
Mhm.
Went home, we just ate some lunch and I had a nap and it was great. So when I woke from that nap at about 1 p.m., 2 p.m. ish, I started to get contractions and I thought, yeehaw, let's go. We had agreed to return to the hospital anyway at 5 p.m. for further monitoring before the doctors finished off for the day, that sort of a thing. So I started to just labor. We decided to visit my son, which was really nice, actually. So my contractions were coming hard and fast, but I was distracted by him. We were just hanging out. He was swimming in the pool. Every 5 minutes or so, I was like, have my contraction and then get back to it. So that I think worked quite well in my favor. I did then put my TENS machine on at that point. So I think it was maybe around 3 p.m. So I'd woken about 1 to 2, 3 p.m., put my TENS machine on, and that thing is amazing. I didn't use it with my first labor, but I wish I did. It was fantastic.
That's so
Then, and then my partner was on a work phone call actually at the time, and my mum's like, I think you guys need to go to the hospital because these contractions were every 3 minutes or so. And I was coping really well, could breathe through them. We get to the hospital, and we're just hanging out in the waiting area. we were actually laughing with each other quite a fair bit because the races were on, like you're in the birthing suite and the horse races is happening. Anyway, we thought it was quite funny. And then when they took me through to start the monitoring, um, the team leader actually came in and said, this is happening pretty quick. Your waters have already broken and your contractions are coming pretty fast. Do you mind if I just check where you are? I said, please go for it. I'd love to know sort of how much longer we've got and um, sort of how far I've come already in these few hours. And
That as
she checked.
well, when you like, I think as well with like the cervical checks, sometimes it can be like a bit of a fear for women going into like the birthing experience. But also, I found that as well. My original plan was I didn't want cervical checks, but then sometimes you do reach that point where it's actually really empowering to and you're
Yes.
like, oh yeah, like I actually want to see how I've gone, and it's a nice bit of piece of feedback in that moment.
Yeah, most definitely. And especially because I'd only been laboring for the few hours. So my first labor was 10 hours before a C-section was decided, and I had only gotten to about 6 centimeters
Mm.
with that first labor. So it's only been about 3 hours, and I was like, yeah, cool, let's see where we're at. So then I can say, nope, I'm going home, and then I'll come back when I'm ready. But
Also a
when she,
testament to the muscle memory of the body because you were 18 months postpartum, and it just shows how our body actually does know how to sort of dilate and soften and open, especially like the second time round when it's done it before.
yes, definitely, yeah, which I think is amazing. And a lot of people do say the second labors happen quicker. It's obviously not guaranteed. It doesn't happen for everyone, but definitely in my case, from the first time to the second time, and laboring naturally, like without being induced and whatnot, it's very different.
Yeah,
Your ability to cope, I feel, is, I don't know if cope's the right word, but being able to manage it, like you have the natural flow of your hormones and things, and it feels good in a way. Obviously, it is uncomfortable, but all the right hormones are releasing at the right time, and it just feels like normal. It feels natural.
because your body's chosen to actually start that process rather than being rushed into it when it
Yeah.
isn't quite ready yet with induction.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, it was really, and that's why I felt great. Again, we were like, I was just walking around the ward and having a laugh and whatnot. So yeah, for the midwife to then check me, like do a cervical check, and she said, "Oh my gosh, you're 10 centimeters. You are fully dilated." And I thought, hell yeah, how good is that? I was so like, I'm like, this is amazing. How did I do this? Especially so quickly, and I was still feeling so great. But she then said, oh, I don't feel a head though. I feel an arm and a foot or a leg. So in that moment, again, knowing what I do know, and from my research, you can't give birth to a child sideways. They need to come either head or bum first. Normally head first, obviously.
How did that feel for you in that moment, knowing that the baby was not in a great position for VBAC?
In all honesty, at the time, I thought that's fine because I made it to 10 centimeters. Look at me go. I did everything I could. No worries. If we have to do a C-section, that's fine. Like I've done it before. So in that moment, it didn't really bother me too much. But I would say afterwards, sort of once I was home and sort of debriefing my birth, that's when it sort of hit me and actually did start to affect me a little bit more.
But from here, so baby's in a poor position for
Yeah.
natural birth, you're fully dilated. Is
Yeah.
this what they offered for you to get rushed in for a C-section?
Yes. So then the room fills with many people very quickly in this situation, because it is definitely not a safe position for the baby to be in. So doctors, midwives, students, everyone was there. But my MGP midwife wasn't. She was still on her way to the hospital. But we got her on the phone. She had phoned me because she had found out I was in there and fully dilated from her other, like the other staff members. So I was on the phone to her whilst the doctors are saying their spiels about the C-section and whatnot. My midwife said, Renee, have they triple checked the position? Get them to triple check. And I said, oh, okay. Can we just check again? Can we make sure that the baby is, yes, sideways? In that moment, though, then the doctors are very firm, not quite yelling, but speaking back to my midwife saying, no, this is what she's got to do, blah, blah, blah. So there was sort of this tension and fighting between the doctor and my
Which
midwife trying to advocate for me.
absolutely terrible to be witnessing when you are completely dilated
Yeah.
woman. It is
Yeah.
not what your body needs to be surrounded by at all.
That's right. So that part was quite disappointing in a way because I then again I've got people trying to put cannulas in. I've got doctors with their hands checking things inside me. I've got people taking my jewelry out. I've got hundreds of people touching me and doing these things. And I still was able to, in that moment, though, turn to the doctor and say, no, my midwife is a part of this discussion, this decision making process, and I trust her. Because I've never met this doctor in my life, but my midwife has known me for over 2 years. So, yeah, I felt good that I was able to speak up in that moment as well. But yes, unfortunately, baby still was definitely not in the correct position. So a C section was required. And I've been there before. We'd been in theatre before. So those things didn't really scare us, or I wasn't feeling anxious about that. Bub was born. However, he needed some support with some breathing. So he was rushed off. At this point, we didn't know that we were having a boy either. So we didn't find out the gender this time. And because he had to be rushed off, the way we found out was the midwife took a photo and showed me on my phone, was like, here you go, here's your baby. And we could visibly see it was a boy.
How was that moment for you finding out that it was your son instead of an immediate golden hour moment?
Look, because I do have a medical background, like I knew that I couldn't hear him crying, so I knew he needed help. Okay. So I felt quite rational in that instant, and knew that he did need the help. My partner was able to go and be with him whilst they started to like do my stitches and whatnot. So he did need to be taken to special care nursery as well. So he was taken from the theatre room and whatnot. But that it didn't bother me. I feel I've again been in that environment before, medical theaters, hospitals, that I've worked there. I've spent a lot of my adult life in those scenarios, obviously not as the patient but on the other side of it as a nurse. So I didn't feel upset or anything. And the staff were quite good. The pediatric doctors, they were coming back and forth between special care and theatre to update me, which was great. And by the time I had been wheeled to recovery, he was there with my partner waiting. So that was, it was only a short time. So I was quite lucky in that regard. I know it's not the case for a lot of people, but yeah, it was only a short time he needed assistance for.
I think that's great, the gratitude that you find in the story, although it didn't completely go the most ideal way. You have a breathing, safe, healthy baby. You're also safe and healthy, and you feel comfortable in that it went the way that it went. And like you said, you still dilated to 10 centimeters all on your own and went through the whole laboring journey. You got to experience your body completely softening and opening and meeting your baby on the other side.
Yeah, that's right. So, all those things are really big positives, because unfortunately, as we know, that doesn't always happen. And birth and labor and all those things is beautiful, but it's also not guaranteed. So those are things. I've had lots of people close to me potentially have issues with their fertility, but also with their pregnancies and loss and late term loss and all those things. So having that around me, I really was able to, like, I do feel so lucky and grateful that everything still went relatively okay for both my boys. Yeah.
Definitely. I'd love to shift the conversation a little bit into your like postpartum seasons because
Yeah.
your first postpartum, obviously you were not preparing for the cesarean and that like sort of happened like that. Did that
Yeah.
impact you emotionally?
My first postpartum, it was great. I didn't feel, I guess, any way towards like having the C-section, or obviously avoiding it would have been ideal, but I wasn't like upset, or I didn't get any postpartum depression or anxiety. I had an extremely positive time with feeding and breastfeeding. Um, to the point where my son never took a bottle, actually. So that part was that was probably the most, tricky part about it. A lot of people say they struggle with the transition from 0 to 1 kids. But I loved it. It was fantastic. And I'm very lucky I was able to have the full 12 months off work. And yeah.
How was the difference then going into your second postpartum season with two under two?
Yeah, so that obviously comes with its own challenges. And this is another reason I was hoping for the VBAC too, is just for the recovery side of it. Because C-section recovery is tough. And when you have just your one newborn baby and you can just sit on the couch all day and rest and put your feet up a lot of the time, that recovery went well. But when you have a 18-month-old running around that also still requires you, it makes it hard. And he didn't understand either, so he still wanted mum to put him to bed, but I couldn't get down on the floor, or I could and I was stuck there, or it'd take me 10 minutes to try and stand up because I was in a lot of pain. The recovery took a lot longer as well. So only just now, at about 4 to 5 months postpartum, do I feel like I can go for longer than 10-minute walks. And, for a long time, I'd still get a flare up of swelling around my scar. I don't even have feeling back around my scar yet, which it can be normal. It can take up to 6 months or so. But all those sorts of things have really slowed down the process.
It's also made this postpartum a bit more emotional for you.
Most definitely, yes. So, as I said earlier, because I wanted the VBAC so bad, to not get it really, really affected me. And I would just cry. And I almost want to cry now because, again, it's just I wanted it so bad because I knew I could do it. And I got so close. Like I was literally, or could have been ready to push that baby out, but it didn't happen for me, which is, I'm coming to terms with it now. And of course, I wouldn't change it because both my boys are here and they're safe and I'm safe and healthy. So that's good. But it really did take a toll. Thinking about my birth would bring up a lot of emotions. The other things that did impact it too were because there was that conflict between the doctor and my midwife in that situation. The doctor actually made a complaint about my midwife. So then my midwife had to, have meetings and things like that to explain her side of it when all she was doing was advocating for me. And I had no issue with her. If anything, the doctor, I felt was out of line. So that played on my mind a bit too, because I didn't want my midwife in trouble for trying to help me.
That's such an interesting point you're making too. Although you have done absolutely nothing wrong in this situation, and your midwife was just following her scope of practice, which is women-led care, and the obstetrician,
Mm.
they're not women-led or focused in their, they view the body as a machine. They're not seeing it. It's a very different way that they're
Yeah.
viewing it. But it's very interesting for you to just bring that piece in because I think that could be quite relatable for a lot of women listening, whether they're on their journey to motherhood or they are a mother, is it's very easy in any situation as a woman to just take that blame and hold that blame.
Yes.
And that's a lot to be holding in a postpartum season on top of everything else that you were navigating.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. And like it was to the point, so my midwife, who would then be coming to do home visits and things like that, she actually took, I think it was about 4 weeks leave after that situation. So then I didn't have her as my, home like visit midwife. I had met the other midwives and they were fantastic. That's not the issue. It's just that that sort of follow on effect, um, that then I had, yeah, someone else coming to my house, not my midwife, and things like that. I felt every week I'd be like, "Are you okay?" Like checking in on my midwife. I'm like, I'm the one who had the baby. Those things definitely did play a part, but again, my midwife, she's fantastic, and we had lots of discussions about it, and her words were, "I will never not do what I did for you for someone else." Just okay, I got called in and had meetings and whatnot. She's like, "That's fine. I can deal with that. I will continue to advocate for my women the way that I
Sounds
have."
like an incredible midwife. And as you're even saying that, I'm getting goosebumps. And I think as well, the level of care you had about her is just a testament to the beautiful relationship that you got to build with her over
Yeah.
the time, which is
Mm.
really what a good care team is for a woman, is you should not take like I'm not saying you should feel that you should blame yourself, but you should feel that level of care for one another. That's a beautiful relationship and bond to have in such a vulnerable transitional time of your life as a woman.
Yeah, most definitely. And I don't know, the more I was actually chatting to my mum today, and I said, I think I want to go back. I've always wanted to be a midwife. I always have. But from school and things, it was very competitive to get into midwifery. So I took the nursing route. But more and more now, especially after having my two boys, I think I feel that I could, or I have a good role model of my midwife. And I feel I could also potentially follow in those footsteps. And I feel I could make a good change and be that support for somebody as well, because I've had that myself.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe in the future I might step into, some further study and look at that, because if I could do that for someone, what she did for me, I would be a very, very happy person, I think.
Such a beautiful intention to go into like shifting your career into midwifery. And I think the best people in industries are always the most embodied. So that's exactly what you're describing. It's like an embodiment that you're describing in how you would love to support other women rather than just following along the textbook. And I just think
Yeah,
that is what makes a good practitioner in whatever field that they move into.
most definitely. Yeah, yeah. You have to be able to, push the boundaries a little bit within reason, to make sure you get the best outcomes for your patient, or whoever you are looking after. Because we're not cookie cutter. We don't all fit into, the policies and the guidelines that, you know, they are there, yes, for a reason, but we don't all fit into that. So, yeah,
And
I
I
think,
think as well, just before I do ask you the final question, but something just to note as well, because I feel like there's been a bit of a theme around this in this conversation, but the the protocols in hospitals are there for the staff, not the women.
Mhm.
So if women aren't aware of that, then they're just saying yes and not advocating. And I mean, a birthing woman, you would really hope doesn't need to advocate for self. That is where, like, you had a great midwife or a doula can come in and actually be that for you. But
Yes.
a lot of women don't understand that is those policies and protocols are for the staff.
Yeah. They have to, like, every job, you have to have like a step by step of this is what to do. But yeah, as Like, you don't have to follow their rules.
Yeah,
As long as you feel informed and you are making the best decision for you and your baby and your experience, um, that's what matters most. Okay. Really, really, that's the most important thing.
definitely. So I'd love to finish on asking you, what do you wish more women understood about how your birth outcome can ripple into postpartum?
For me, my expectations around my birth is what affected me most. And I feel though I was aware of that coming into it the second time. The hardest part, I think, is the excitement of it. This is the dream. This is what I want. But having that reality of it's not always possible. Not possible, but it may not happen. Nature and things that come into play and can affect things. So what I wish people knew more is that having that support during your birth and in those early postpartum days, I think can really set you up for success as it flows through into those, weeks and months postpartum. Having the conversations, doing the debriefs, all of those sort of things. Let the emotions flow because it's going to happen no matter what at some point. But you try and let those things happen. And that can really help to then follow on to a more positive postpartum experience.
Yeah,
Um,
beautiful. Like being informed, but equally surrendering to just the process of how your story is going to go.
yeah, that's right. And, you know, we can all have a birth plan and, you know, our ideas of what we want, but still having it may not happen that way.
Mhm.
And that's okay. That's the biggest thing, is that it's okay if it doesn't go how you planned. As long as you are informed, yes, and do everything you can in a safe way to achieve the birth that you would like. Yeah.
That is such a great piece of advice. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your stories through birth, postpartum. I feel like that was such an empowering listen, especially for mums who might be planning that VBAC or have planned it before and it didn't get achieved, but you still, although there's emotional processing and all of the things around it, you can still find that place of gratitude that your body is still capable of. In your scenario, your body was still capable of completely opening and softening and beginning to bring your baby down. It's
Yeah,
that was out of your control, and it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with your birthing body at all.
that's right.
You still were able to achieve that, and I just think it's very, very empowering. So thank you so much for applying to come on the podcast and like choosing to share your story for other women to also feel empowered by. Thank you so much for listening to another guest episode on With Love Mama, the podcast. If you would love to share your own conception, birth, or postpartum journey on our podcast, I'd be absolutely honored to hear from you. There's a link below in the show notes, and your story could be medicine for another mother that is listening. Until next time, honor your body, trust in your wisdom, and remember, you were, in fact, made for this. Love you.